back, everyone, to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And I am in a new location.
I love how you're like, here's the banner that I've not had up for months, and here all of a sudden it is. Yes, new location. Super excited to have a brighter, I have to say, for the YouTube audience. Shout out to the YouTube audience. A brighter setup, and I mean, yeah, there's some purple and blue behind you, so that's good.
Yeah, I got some more lighting. Hopefully this is going to look better over time, but right now.
Hopefully we get it in frame, because right now it's your head's like half and the banner's half. We'll work on the
there's
framing.
only so much. This is really big. I don't know.
The banner is pretty tall.
Yeah.
Is would that be the gift from me? I'm assuming it was.
Yeah.
From a while back. Yeah. All right. A long time ago I gave Josh that. Cool, man. Gosh, man. I feel like it's been a month since we've chatted, but
It's been 7 days.
We don't need to delay anything here because we have really quick. I'm going to go through this for people. We have DeAndre Ayton getting matched by the Suns. We have my goodness. We have Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, I already did. Donovan Mitchell trades. We have Summer League Finals and the MVP from Summer League. We have the take foul officially being a new rule change in the NBA. We also have TBT's first weekend, which was unbelievable. We're going to have plenty of time for that. And then Kyrie and LeBron, the Drew League. We'll just talk about the Drew League for a minute because, my goodness, it's July 18th, Monday, recording this in the evening. We're going to chat about all this insane basketball news. If you had told me a month ago that we'd have this much to talk about on July 18th, I think I would have told you were nuts. But with that being said, I'm going to open up really quick with something, and I did not tell Josh this whatsoever, so I'm getting a literal live reaction on this. But I want to open up with a fun little small game that won't take long at all because we do have a lot to talk about. But I do think it's topical, and I think it's hilarious and important. Josh has no idea. This is great. So, there was a very, very viral tweet this week that circulated that I find absolutely hysterical, and I'd like to talk about it for, let's put a cap at 5 minutes. I think you may have not that long of an opinion on it, but...
Are you going to share screen? Show it to him?
No, I'll pop it up on YouTube. I'll pop it up right here, and I'm just going to read it to you. You'll be able to follow along.
Bing.
You're going to tell me which one of these teams you would pick in a Game 7 series. So in a 7-game series...
Oh, God.
We have Team Kardashian lovers, and we have Team Jenner lovers. The funny part is, Josh sent this in one of our basketball group chats that we're in, one of the hundreds of them. Josh sent that in there for not realizing that I'm in that. He probably knew it, but I'm in there thinking, this is a great segment. So I pulled it, didn't say a word, didn't react to it, didn't answer the question, nothing. Just let it be. And I pulled it up. So shout out to, I want to make sure, Miami Bruh on Twitter for this. Absolutely hysterical tweet. I'm going to read these really quick. For on YouTube, you're going to see it on the screen for a moment. And also, we'll tweet it and all that stuff too. We'll retweet it. But Team Kardashian is headlined by NBA All-Star James Harden, Tristan Thompson, Lamar Odom, Rick Fox, and Chris Humphries. To be clear, I want to do this as best case scenario in their primes. Okay. Because that's just the only way that makes sense.
When was Chris Humphries' prime?
2007, I think. That Nets team that was anyway, whatever. He was good on the Nets for a little while. Team Jenner is this is off the rails, and we've not even done the official first segment yet. This is great. No. All right, Team Jenner.
Should I fix it, or you okay?
Nah, just leave it. YouTube's gonna love this. If you're listening to this on Apple and Spotify, hit download.
If you're looking for a metaphor for the off season for the Hornets, just
you just got it, yeah.
Yep.
No, if you're watching this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Hit like, hit comment, hit subscribe. If you're watching this on anything else or listening to this on anything else, come over to YouTube when you're done. Team Jenner, headlined by Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Kuzma, Blake Griffin, Ben Simmons, and Devin Booker. So, for those on YouTube, like I said, you're going to see it right here. For those of you listening, it's headlined by a couple of good players. I think this is a really, really intriguing thought. So, my only question is, who wins this game? Who wins this in a 7-game series?
So this is tough. Because I think a lot of the sentiment I saw from people is that Team Jenner has more talent. A lot of people seem to be on that boat. I think a lot of them just have that sense because all of the players on Team Jenner are still playing basketball today, which is not the case for Team Kardashian. I think that's part of where it was coming from.
That's not fair, though.
No, it's not.
Right.
Because you got to take them in their prime. That's why we got to think it through a little bit more. Team Kardashian's got a lot of champions. It's got Rick Fox, Lamar Odom, Tristan Thompson. It's got rings.
Yeah, James. Well, I almost said James Harden.
No, he doesn't. But then James Harden,
right.
The best player, going to be the best player on the court.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're talking Houston, James Harden. Yeah, this is best player by far.
I tell you, Chris Humphries really is a weak link. It's tough. Like, I'm trying to...
By the way, any other episode where there's not 6 topics, I would Google his stats and we'd go through this. I just want gut reaction from this. By the way, this is going up on TikTok. If you're seeing this on TikTok, follow us wherever you want. Subscribe, follow us, all that stuff. Yeah, this is great.
I'll take Team Kardashian. They've got experience winning 7-game series.
Does it go 7?
I don't know. I can't name for you someone on Team Jenner that's got real experience winning in the playoffs. Maybe Devin Booker.
This isn't the playoff. This is a 1 series.
Yeah, but it's replicating the playoffs.
All right, I'll just get this out of the way, then we can move the heck on. I left this completely just where I didn't tell you, and y'all can tell by now, especially on YouTube. Like, you're going to be able to tell. I told him nothing about this, which, by the way, again, this was his idea. Not his idea, but
This is not my idea.
He sent the tweet.
I just saw the tweet and thought it was an interesting question.
It really is. To be clear, I am Team Jenner, and I don't think it's close. I think they sweep Team Kardashian.
Really?
I do, yeah. I think Ben
No
Simmons,
love for your guy Lamar?
No, I think Ben Simmons stops James Harden. I think Kyle Kuzma can play good enough defense on Lamar. Jordan Clarkson, Jordan Clarkson can't guard anybody, but he doesn't have to guard Rick Fox. I mean, that's whatever. Blake Griffin's better than Chris Humphrey, and then Devin Booker's going to score 1 million. Obviously, Ben's going to have to kind of play that Tristan Thompson, James Harden, kind of figure that matchup out, but I don't want to think too hard about this. This is a stupid analogy, but it is funny. But I think it's Team Jenner, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't a sweep. Someone needs to, hold on, you know what? This is my ask.
This is an NBA 2K game.
Exactly. Someone go on 2K and...
But if you're going to do it, make the uniforms they have in the tweet picture that you guys
You can make all that stuff in my team.
You got to have the uniforms and simulate a 7-game series and let us know.
Yeah. Someone tweet it at us, send it to us. Thank you. All right, now that we got that out of the way. Also, by the way, shout out to the people in the comments who were saying that, Ray J would do, the national anthem, and Kanye would do the halftime show, and Travis Scott. It'd be a great halftime show. Think about it. One of those guys would have to do. Ray J would do the national anthem. Kanye, Nick Cannon, Tyga, Travis Scott. Those are all guys that aren't basketball players. That would be a heck of a music lineup for that. You got one guy a game if it goes 5. Anyway. All right, we can move on.
Pete Davidson there?
Yeah, there you go. It's a comedy halftime show, one of those games. Yeah, that'd be cool.
He can perform with Kanye.
Yeah, be great. So the Suns officially matched DeAndre Ayton offer sheet to get where we are, to get back on the tracks. The Suns officially, first of all, let me back up. The Pacers offered a 4-year, $137 million, and that roughly equates to $34 million a year, based on how they matched that out.
Did they say it was the largest RFA that's ever been offered?
I did not hear that, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was. It with the way and that number's going to change every couple of years as stuff increases.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's as the cap goes up.
And I wouldn't be shocked if another 5-year, because of the length of the 5 years.
Well, it's just that usually the guys who are going to get that extreme of a deal are getting extended after year 3. They're not making it to their RFA.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good... Oh, yeah. It probably is then, based on that. I was getting the two, just put together in my head. I didn't think about that.
Because most of the guys... we're seeing Ja, Zion, these guys are signing extensions before they would hit their RFA season.
Well, either way, and I can look that up as we're chatting through this, but largest, or at least this offseason for RFA for sure, 4-year, 137. The Pacers basically cleared house, and I don't have the tweet in front of me with the 7 different moves they did, the cuts, the 2 ways converting to this contract to that contract. They essentially went all in thinking that, based on everything they thought and everything they might have heard, that the Suns wouldn't have matched Ayton because they didn't value him as a max player. Well, we only do this show weekly. For those of you that are here, thank you. We appreciate you've probably heard someone's opinion a little sooner. But less than 6 hours later, the Phoenix Suns said, nah, we'll take Ayton back. Mm-hmm. And Ayton is officially, Ayton's officially a matched contract, and he cannot be traded. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Per the CBA, he cannot be traded prior to January 15th. But he can technically be traded a month later, so, anytime there in that month later. So, not even thinking that far ahead, what was your initial reaction to it?
I mean, I was quite surprised. One, that Indiana would straight up offer. There's no sign and trade, trying to figure out. But also because Indiana was kind of going into a tank mode. And then I was also shocked that Phoenix would be willing to pay that, but I guess they've kind of hopped off the Kevin Durant train, and are just going to try to run it back. Because, I mean, it's a team that was in the NBA Finals 2 years ago.
So what you just said was a double-edged sword, and I'm going to say this for people who might not know this, but the way the signing part, where the sign and trade and how that offer sheet timeline works, I looked it up. It's way too boring to go through. But I will say this. There's a time period. I think it gives the Suns 8 hours to essentially make DeAndre Ayton sign and tradable whenever the official offer gets non-rescinded. Basically, when the Suns have that decision window. It's that first 8 hours where he can basically be signed and trade. So if KD was going to be a Phoenix Sun, it would have happened 8 hours after we found out about this, right? So that's the one edge of the sword that you just said. The other side of it is they are backing out on him, and you're kind of surprised initially that I'm not surprised Indiana. It's another part we'll talk about in a minute. I'm not surprised Indiana went straight out and just tried to get him because like I said, they probably thought they could have. The other part of it is that the Kevin Durant thing. Like, is DeAndre Ayton worth this? That's not the question. Is Kevin Durant worth going into the tax for, where the tax bill for him would have been a lot different? They're $15 million into the luxury tax, which is the whole purpose of why this DeAndre Ayton situation drug on. So, is he worth $15 million in the tax? Eventually, maybe did they change their mind? Did Sarver eventually realize, hey, I've lost all my chips here. I basically need to bring Ayton back, and then we can maybe punt after January 15th. I don't know. I really, honestly, where I've ended is I have no idea what's going on, and I think they just got him to not lose the asset. I think they realized they would have been dumb to lose the asset completely.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the $15 million thing, and maybe the Nets were just not. Obviously, the Devin Booker thing was there. You don't want to, the Nets don't want. The Nets are going to only want Devin Booker right now, and where we are with that trade package. So maybe that's why. But just $15 million into the tax for Ayton, who you originally didn't want to go $5 million into the tax for before. Waiting was the worst thing you could have done. You could have had him at any number that they originally offered him 120. Or, that would have been the rumored number. But
well, I mean, no, they couldn't have, because, they made him the qualifying offer. And after that, it was waiting on him to make a decision. And he was waiting on another team to make him an offer.
Yeah, I mean, even the year before. Like, they didn't have to take this year, is kind of the...
No, they didn't. I think they finally, came to a conclusion that, as the Phoenix Suns, their championship window probably isn't as long as some other franchises, and they need to go for it while they can.
Chris Paul's a big part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta really go all in for it while they still can.
I mean, if you have Booker, Bridges, Cam Johnson, Cameron Payne, DeAndre Ayton, your window might not be possible. Are you going to
continue to be able to retain all of those guys?
I mean, Chris Paul is not. He's not going to be 36.
I know Paul's going to be gone, but
yeah. Well, no,
you just gave all this money to Ayton. Eventually, Devin Booker's going to need a new contract.
Yeah.
And Mikal Bridges is going to need a new contract.
Well, Booker's will be in a long time because he signed that 4-year max this offseason, so he'll be there through the 28 season or 27 season, assuming he.
So he signed a 4-year max extension, which means he's eligible for another extension after 3 years. So that's when they're going to have to look at.
The number, money. Yeah. And ultimately, if all this might be wash one day, and the reason being is Sarver might not be the owner.
Mm-hmm.
So really, some of this conversation doesn't matter.
Probably shouldn't be the owner.
Oh, the cool thing about Summer League, we'll talk about that in a minute, is they do have meetings and they have conversations and the lawyers are in town and all that stuff, right? And they are officially, I don't remember how this was reported, but they are officially in the final stages of the NBA's investigation. So. Could be any day now at this point, to be honest with you. Could be 6 more months. No idea.
I mean, the precedent's there. Donald Sterling got ousted pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm laying out the pieces that, hey, by the way, this could be outdated tomorrow, but it also could be 6 months from now. Regardless, it's a decision in the rash of the basketball side of things where, yes, $15 million into luxury tax for an owner that might not be paying that out of his pocket 4 days from now.
Yeah,
it's ultimately that this is a team that if you what you got out of bringing DeAndre Ayton back, you can win the title next year. That's where the whole thing ended up, and this doesn't eliminate them from Kevin Durant. It seems like Kevin Durant might just be going completely radio silent, and the Nets are just gonna play the waiting game, which we've seen in the past.
They should.
Can work, and it can't work as well. We've seen situations where it goes both ways. So I'm not discouraged by this by anything. The Pacers part of it, I'll touch on this before I ask you the question I had. Is the Pacers part I'm not shocked by because this is kind of DeAndre Ayton's 23, so he's not that old, right? 2018 draft pick,
He's super young.
first round pick. Yeah, he's still young, and their
not
timeline,
that old is not the right phrase. Super young.
Yeah, I say not that old in the sense that like they are kind of in this like got rid of Malcolm Brogdon, got rid of T.J. Warren. They still have Miles Turner. They can figure out how to move him eventually. They're in this place where they can kind of almost rebuild and retool at the same time. And Nathan's not bad for that, is what I mean by not too old, right? He's not 21. He's not 19, right? He's not right out of the draft like he was a few years ago. But I'm not shocked they tried to get him. I mean, the sign and trade thing, like they take less stress out of it, being like, oh well, we got to give up a couple assets, whatever. Which I just don't know what I'd give up for Ayton in a sign and trade if I'm the Pacers. So why not just try to sign
They
him?
would have sent Turner, I would guess.
Right, but maybe
the two of them would not fit together.
The two of them, yeah, I guess I was about to say the two of them. I keep thinking that the Sun, like that's how out of this with the Suns matching I was. Like the Pacers, I almost said out loud like, oh, but they're on the same team together. They're not. The Suns actually match, and that's what I still have to get out of my head. No, I'm not shocked, but ultimately at the end of the day, yes, Turner's probably gone. He's probably in a separate deal maybe or something like that, but I'm not shocked because ultimately they would have to give up nothing other than paying him, and which they obviously clearly were fine with doing. So if you're Indiana, you're not going to get a max guy like that very often, if not ever. Mm-hmm. That's just the small market part of it. We've had that conversation before. It's worth it for them to take the $37 million. Yeah, no, and things could change.
Charles
I just think
signed Gordon Hayward.
For the $37 million Ayton was going to get, or 30, what did I end up saying? 34 million a year. Like Indiana's willing to pay that because they have the cap flexibility now. So, my question for you was, because we don't know how this situation is going to play out at all, clearly, is DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix by the trade deadline? Do you think he gets moved this trade deadline coming up? Like, do you think they just say nah and they're like, all right?
I think if they were going to move him, they would have.
In that sign and trade period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that massive deal he's now on makes it more difficult to move him now.
Yeah, oh no, it does. And in the January 15th window, like, I just don't understand. I just don't even know where I would reset his market value to. I really don't. Like,
I think
January
if they intended on moving him, they would have done it. But they didn't do it. So, I don't think they have any intention.
So, ultimately, the point we ended up with is obviously this is still new and this is still early and we all know all that stuff. But it's at least making sure we put on record that shocked has to be the right word. Like Phoenix ultimately matched DeAndre Ayton for $15 million over what they originally cared to give him. So I just don't understand it. And I mean, Indiana, I guess, just has this place where they're like, cool, we're good. We'll move on. We'll play with Turner. And if not, then we'll move him. I mean, I just think Indiana's like, they had nothing to lose. So really, it's just a win-win, I guess, for everybody other than Robert Sarver. Do you feel bad for him? No. No, I don't feel bad for him paying $15 million. He's going to pay a lot more than that in a couple months. So, anything else on DeAndre Ayton? Anything like that? Do you think this shifts? Like, because Phoenix basically just brought the same team back. It doesn't really shift their title odds or anything like that. I mean, I didn't look at the actual odds changing, obviously, but does this shift anything for you in terms of Phoenix, in terms of the title? I don't think it would. Yeah.
Nah.
All right. Donovan Mitchell. I'm proud of us for going through one of the bigger stories of the week in 13 minutes because it's really all you could get out of DeAndre Ayton. There's not a ton where it was like, maybe this thing, maybe this scenario. I just don't think we know enough. I really don't.
About Ayton?
About the Ayton situation. Like, I just
we
think
know all of it now.
We don't know
He's
enough
been
about
re-signed. He's staying.
what the plan. Well, for right now, but the January 15th part of it, we don't know until we get closer to
that. That
eligible.
number is just the CBA. I mean, like, yeah, but like LeBron's eligible to be traded.
They don't want to pay that. It was the paying part of it. Like, if they still don't want to pay that, they can get rid of him after January.
Well, if they didn't want to pay it, they wouldn't have matched it.
I guess you don't strike out that way. Yeah, okay, maybe. But all right, Donovan Mitchell trades is where we've ended up because, Danny Ainge is in charge. So welcome to a world where Danny Ainge has now moved one huge asset and now is ready to potentially move another one and go into a complete rebuild with a bajillion picks. Sounds familiar, right?
The question is, who is dumb enough to trade with Danny Ainge?
Oh, okay. I like how who is dumb enough, and I'm like, dumb enough to do what? I don't know. What are you insinuating here?
Like, who wants to be a millionaire?
So I want to.
Who wants to play this gambling game?
It is a gambling game. I have 4 for you, but I'm curious. Just who do you think is your like? Because I have 4 that 2 of them are what we keep hearing, and I think are relatively possible, and then 2 of them I came up with. So, do you have a favorite? Like the fit, best case scenario for both sides. However you want to wrap it. What is your Donovan Mitchell trade that makes the most sense? Because I have mine from least favorite to favorite in order. So
fit.
You can go however you want with this. I'm curious what you
think. I think it's going to be to New York at the end of the day.
Okay, so you think ultimately that's where it happens? Because obviously that's right now it's a minus betting odd right now for that to happen.
Because I don't think
clearly, yeah.
I really think it's a 2-team race in that it's New York and Miami.
Yep.
And Miami is too smart to do.
Hero, Robinson.
Yeah. They'll do that,
Cruz,
but like
3 picks.
The Ainge is not trading Mitchell for just like Hero and Robinson and like some picks.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why they're second worst on my list.
Got 5 firsts for Rudy Gobert, who I have to believe, although I don't think it's true. I'm going to preface this by saying I do not believe this is true. I think that the NBA market places Rudy Gobert's value as lower than Donovan Mitchell's.
That's fair.
Even though I believe it's higher. So if you look at what Gobert's trade was, theoretically the NBA market is going to be willing to pay more.
So to be clear on what that means, that's 4 first-round picks, every other year.
Technically 5 because they got Walker Kessler in that deal.
Let's just say the actual non-pick. Like I got the Walker Kessler part of it, right? That would be, just to map this out for people who may not understand. 4 first-round picks, that would be, the 23, 25, 27, every other year. We know the rule, right? Stepping rule. That would be 3 swaps for Donovan Mitchell, technically. Or 2, or 1, right? It would be, if you're going by the Walker Kessler part of it, it would be 6 of them. So 4 unprotecteds, or 4, whatever. And then 2 swaps. So 6 picks, not including any other asset in that deal. This is Danny Ainge we're talking about, by the way. So the parallel I drew from this, and I want to talk about the New York thing.
And my point is that I don't think Pat Riley will do that.
Exactly.
I think that's what's going to take.
100%.
I think the Knicks might do it.
We're going to talk about that. So, really quickly, though.
I think they might be willing.
They really will. And we're going to talk about it, because I have them in order from least favorite to favorite, and you'll see why as we go, and it'll make sense. And we'll just talk them out. There's no, I don't think this segment will turn into, this is exactly what we think is going to happen. Well, you said what you think is ultimately going to happen, but I don't think this turns into, verbatim. We're going to go exactly into all these trades in detail and yada yada. I just want to kind of talk them out, see where we end up with them, right? So, the really quick thing with Danny Ainge, though, who's got a very... We're going to call it tenured history, because the opinion might be good, the opinion might be bad. But ultimately, he ended up with a team of Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce, and they won a title, and he was the reason they made those 2 deals. I'm laying that out for a reason, right?
And then he traded that to Brooklyn.
For
their entire future.
All that aside.
That then turned into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Exactly, right? So let's the piece of the puzzle there. We know the timeline, right? But I want people to understand, in hindsight, when the Ray Allen deal happened, and this is like digging back into NBA history. I hope people like this stuff. There was a very big gut reaction of, why the heck did we just trade the 5th overall pick for Ray Allen to have Paul Pierce and Ray Allen together? That didn't seem at the time like no one was thinking about the next Kevin Garnett piece, right? Oh, yeah. I looked up, I heard some stories. I went back and made sure I was correct on that, and I heard a couple of narratives and stuff that went through that. But regardless, at the time, the Kevin Garnett deal wasn't on the horizon yet. That was the piece that helped get them the Kevin Garnett piece, right? So I'm basically I'm laying out the Danny Ainge thought process for a second, because you got to think it's basically what he did with that, but opposite direction. It's kind of like what they did with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I'm glad you connected those points, because you have the 2 assets in this case. So let's say the Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, and they did exactly what they did, and they got rid of them. And I guess Pierce, it's kind of tough trading Pierce, right? It's whatever, right? Neither here nor there. That's kind of tough. But you had Gobert and you have Mitchell, and you're essentially just being like, okay, so Danny's now the one with all the power, right? Mm-hmm. Danny didn't have the power in those Ray Allen. He had to make the deal work, right? He had to be the one. So Danny's ultimately using his pedigree here. He got 5, like you said, 5 picks for Gobert. I had that down. I wanted to talk about that. I'm glad you brought it up.
It's the whole reason the Kevin Durant trade has not happened yet.
Because Rudy Gobert's deal. I know.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge.
Because he moved the needle so far.
So the part of it, I just wanted to lay out that, because it's not about the Danny Ainge points and connecting 2008 to this. It's understanding that it's Danny Ainge's entire pedigree now, where he has all the assets that everyone wants, and it's going to be a bidding game. And the fact that I want to know who was outbidding Minnesota. That's what I gotta know. It was Tim Connolly. Like, it was Tim Connolly outbidding himself, essentially. I have to know how that. I would love if I don't know what amount of money I would pay to hear that Danny Ainge and that conversation with Tim Connolly. Like, I just want to know. Anyway, let's get to the Donovan Mitchell part of it, because I think those things are important to think about in this. So we obviously talked about and actually one of my questions, I'm glad you attacked it head on. What is Mitchell worth to you value-wise based on what we saw from Gobert's trade? We've already addressed that, right? So let's just, not to you.
Not worth to me. That's
general,
what I imagine the market is.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. I do want to know eventually, because when we go, and this is why I'm tying this all together.
I have been pretty open about not being the biggest Donovan Mitchell fan on this podcast.
Oh yeah, this is going to all be brought to light right now.
Okay.
and it's for
I feel like it's like I haven't exactly shied away from that.
That's great. And this is cool, because this is why I want to go from my least favorite to favorite, because I want to talk out some of them and see where you end up on his value, because I really am curious where his value are, and each team's going to be different. So we're going to start with the New York Knicks, because ultimately that's probably what we're going to be dumb in the month and looking back on this and go, well, he's a New York Knick now, whatever, right? Who cares? It's my least favorite for the simple basketball sake that you have 2 6'1" guards. I don't like that. I just don't understand even the deal, how it would work. They're just my least favorite deal. Doesn't mean I don't think it's going to happen. Doesn't mean I don't think it's the right thing to do. I personally just don't like the basketball fit with having 2 defensive. I'm not saying Jalen Brunson is a liability. He's not the stout defender that everyone thinks he might be. He's 6'1" ultimately. He's not fast on the ball. Neither is Donovan Mitchell. They both aren't good defenders. Now, I get it. Donovan Mitchell also didn't want to pass to Rudy Gobert more than 4 times a game in the playoffs this year. He may have also not wanted to play on-ball defense for him either. I get it, right? Not the best teammate in that situation. But
there's no need to add the "in that situation" part. Just ended the sentence before that.
I could have. Yeah, no,
not the
fair.
best teammate.
I'm trying to be devil's advocate here, and I'm not the biggest fan of Mitchell either. How many years did I say in those start bench cuts that went viral for the last 5 years? How many times did I ever pick Donovan Mitchell over anybody? 0.
It's because Devin Booker was always in that as well.
Even if he wasn't, if Donovan Mitchell was an option, he was not going to be started by me in any form or fashion. The Levine piece of it.
And don't get me wrong, like, I don't have an issue as much with Mitchell's talent.
No, he's 26
as much as I have with his ability to be a good teammate.
He can help you win a playoff series. People need to understand that. Like, in the last 5 playoff series,
he can help you win a playoff series.
He can help you. I was very clear. Help you. He can very.
With the way he plays and the attitude he has, I'm not sure if he's the guy.
No. Oh, I don't think so either.
For anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, but
and that was kind of what has become the downfall of Utah. But
yeah, but if you're the Knicks, like, it ultimately is. There's a lot more there with the Knicks part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Knicks are sitting there and thinking, of course, we're going to get a guy like that. We're going to bring him home, whatever, all that stuff. They're also going to look at the last 5 playoff series and go, Donovan Mitchell averaged 32-5-5 in his last 5 playoff series. Like, that can win you a thing in the right situation, right? It can win you a playoff series. So, again, not my favorite fit. My question for the Knicks, and then we can move on to the other packages, is do you think the Knicks have enough if they don't include Barrett? Do you think the value is there?
Like, it's clear that Ainge's prerogative is not necessarily players in this instance. It's picks. None of the players that he got back from Minnesota were all that great.
Yeah, I agree.
Whoever it is in New York could
trade,
like, just scattered pieces to make the money
Top
work.
And
then
quickly.
Just, like, pack in
salary filler and picks. Yeah. Basically get it to where it needs to be. So you are.
I wouldn't call Obi Toppin salary filler. But.
Oh no, he's not. He will be one of the better pieces in that deal.
Yeah.
I'm still holding on to some Obi Toppin stock. Didn't have him as
I don't think the Knicks should trade RJ Barrett. I think that's a terrible decision.
Well, and it comes down to that value question, right? You ultimately would value a package of everything else and picks and not RJ Barrett, right? That's fine. And I would too, right? I'm going to be completely clear. People who aren't new here know that. Like, I value RJ Barrett a lot higher than most do. And if I think there's a way you can get him without it, like, this is also the Knicks we're talking about, and like, I just don't see a situation where they move him. So like, that's great.
I think if you're talking a trade for Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to preface by talking specifically about a trade for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah,
I think that RJ Barrett should be off the table for the New York Knicks.
I agree.
And I think they will do that. I think they like him enough to do that.
They should.
But I think it's a really bad decision to trade the guy who is your youngest and best piece you have thus far to this point away. It just wouldn't make sense.
After just signing your, quote, franchise point guard as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then the Knicks ultimately, we ended up basically agreeing. So we'll move on. We talked about this already a little bit. Miami. This is my second. So I guess I went from least favorite to favorite, right? He is the literal opposite of everything that Miami encompasses. So if we're just talking about I don't care about the deal. We don't even have to talk about the deal. We already did. It's just not something they would be willing to do, except for the fact that they put in an official trade request at the beginning of free agency for Donovan Mitchell. So there's clearly some kind of interest there. Now,
is that prior to the Rudy Gobert trade?
Yes, it was.
There you go. Okay, so
it was. Yeah. It was.
Moving on. Who's the next team?
The next team you're gonna love. It is our Sacramento Kings.
Oh, okay.
So
no, too many point guards. Let's keep going.
No. Listen. So, listen. I agree with you on the too many point guards thing.
Yeah.
What I want to lay out though is, if this drags on, they could potentially move De'Aaron Fox in this, and they could essentially. I'm serious. This would end up essentially with a De'Aaron Fox. Maybe some. I'm trying to think of like whatever we went through the roster, but you would have to throw in another young piece maybe in there, and 3 picks essentially is what the Kings would give up, right? And if you're Danny Ainge, here's why, right? Miami's good all the time, even when they don't. Even when they aren't winning, their picks are either in someone else's hands or they find a way to get them back, right? We've seen that happen in the last 5 years. So Miami is not a good pick situation if you're Danny Ainge. So I'm going back to why I wanted to talk about Danny Ainge at the beginning. The Knicks, same thing. The Knicks have the draft capital, so ultimately the Knicks would be a pretty decent, draft capital part of it, right? If you're Danny Ainge, if you want draft picks. What's a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2006, right? Who's had 11 top 10 picks since 2006? The Sacramento Kings. A team
they've had 11 top 10 picks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I went all out for this. I want you to realize how possible this really could be. Now, I'm saying possible in terms of the fit and all that, whatever, right? I'm just saying in terms of the assets and the fact that if Danny Ainge wants to think through this, and he's a good GM, whether you like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not, he's a good GM. So he can make deals happen. We've seen that. Gobert's worth 5 picks. Can we keep reiterating that? But my point is it could eventually get to a point where if they don't want to pay the De'Aaron Fox salary, you move on, even though they just wanted to make that work with Fox. I get it, right? It could still work. It could ultimately end up being Fox, Metu or Chimizi Metu, one of the young guys on a light salary, and 3 picks, and that's it. And you end up with a Donovan Mitchell.
That's a lot for Donovan Mitchell.
It is, but to you, right? But the market value still might call for that, isn't it? Isn't that crazy?
Is the talent gap between Fox and Mitchell that great?
I would say
it's
there.
There's a talent gap. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's not one.
But
is it that big?
Probably not.
Yeah. But is it 3 first-round picks big? It's a big talent gap.
I'll end with the Kings on this because I don't want to spend 3 hours today.
I think it's a good move for the Kings since they seem to be locked into this win-now.
That's it.
Situation.
That was the point I was holding.
If they're really locked into this win-now thing, and they have started to put some good pieces together,
they have. Unbelievable.
Donovan Mitchell added to Sabonis and Herter and Holmes and Keegan Murray.
Yep.
I think that pushes them maybe to the 8th seed in the Western Conference, and that gets them to what they want.
Bingo. That was the encompassing piece I was holding. I mean, obviously out of the frame right now, but I was holding over our heads was they want to win. Mm-hmm. If you win, you move on from the point guard that, yes, Fox and Sabonis had a great second half of the season. I get it, but Fox, Mitchell, at that point, if you're the Kings, that's not we're not ruling anything out with this team. We understand that, right? So it's a possible move. That's why it's my second favorite. Mm-hmm. My favorite, however, which is why I wanted to end with this, because I knew that this one may or may not cause us to go into an anarchy spin. But I'm going to do it anyway because I do think it's possible, and I do think I'm not ruling anything out. I would rule less of it out if there was a different GM in this situation. So Tim Connolly is no longer in Denver. And if he was, obviously Gobert was moved to his new team, and he already made a deal with Danny Ainge, so he can't do it in 2 different teams. I get it. I'm not ruling anything out with, the new GM thing, we have a 2-time MVP thing, we have a point guard coming off of an injury, we have an injury-prone small forward who we just paid a lot of money to, wink, wink. Denver would say, hey, here's Michael Porter Jr., you're trying to rebuild anyway, here's every pick we have for the rest of eternity. And they try to make. And by the way, they're the same team that traded Donovan Mitchell on draft night. Let's just be clear about that. I don't see a world where Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, and Nikola Jokic can't work together, and that might be a really darn good team in the West. That's already a really good team with an injury-prone small forward.
I don't
That's
see it.
Me? Oh no, I don't see it happening. Let me just be clear.
No, I don't see it working. Like, I just don't.
I see it working, and I think it'd
like
be great.
at all. That makes a team that already has two pretty ball dominant players in Murray and Jokic, and which works because Jokic has kind of worked himself into ability to not be ball dominant.
Be a point guard. Just say it. Just be a point guard.
Well, he's worked his way into not be a point guard all the time.
That's fair. Yeah.
If you add Donovan Mitchell to that, who also then needs to be ball dominant, that's just a terrible spot.
So that's
and I'll take Jamal Murray over Donovan Mitchell every day.
Okay. So then that's where, and maybe we won't spend forever on it, because I like the basketball fit solely because I would be hard pressed to say that one-on-one you're obviously going to, not one-on-one literally like playing against each other, but like up against each other in terms of this scenario, Porter Jr. versus Mitchell, there's too much risk on one of those factors and there's not too much risk in the other, right? That's a given. I'm giving Donovan Mitchell a chance that he would be able to be good in a system where I think Jokic is a really good fit for him. The problem would be the Murray piece of it, right? Like, could they play together, even though they're both... And Murray's not really a typical point guard either. That's why the Jokic thing works. That's the part where it gets a little weird. I get it, right? But in terms of a basketball fit, I'm giving them the chance to make it work, and I think it could. I'm not like... Obviously, I think it's better than Sacramento in terms of just pure putting three people together that can actually win a basketball series, right? I think that's part of... That's why those were close, but I would ultimately pick the Denver situation there. But essentially, you got to think like you're getting a piece. If you're Danny Ainge, it's the same thing. Denver's not going to be like that forever. Their picks later on will be worth a lot. The swaps, all that stuff are going to be an advantage. You're essentially getting Porter, who then you could eventually move. Obviously, at that point, somebody may take a chance on him. Danny Ainge doesn't need him. All that stuff, right? They'll basically say, hey, next year we want a tank for Wembanyama. Hey, Michael Porter Jr., go to Germany and rehab your back another year. Just hang out. We're good. We don't need you. And that's essentially what they would do, right? I think it'd be a really cool fit.
So, the Portland Trailblazers and the New York Knicks played in the NBA Summer League Finals here, the first year where the teams that win the Summer League are going to get big old championship rings. And the Portland Trailblazers won Summer League. If that's a shock to you, it also was to Damian Lillard, who was not watching.
Okay, he was like on a beach or a pool.
He was at a pool
with his teammates. Was he supposed to be?
No, his teammates FaceTimed him afterwards.
He didn't know.
To show that they won, and it took him a good 45 seconds to realize the guy was holding the trophy to his face. And then he was, oh, y'all won. I think the whole, championship in Summer League is kind of dumb. And just the fact, Damian Lillard could not have cared less. It was just hilarious to me.
If you were in his shoes, would you have cared less? Probably not either.
No, I don't. Yeah. I don't care at all.
That's why I'm not whatever.
It was quite fun. But, they're getting these giant championship rings.
Yeah, that part I'm a little weary on.
It's kind of hilarious.
To say the least. That's so interesting they're getting championship rings. I did see that, but, I saw the trophy, but, yeah, beside the point. I honestly... Would Knicks fans, would they have turned into this? Would they have just caused a scene if they had won? Would that have been a big deal? It would have been okay. I thought the same thing. I'm kind of glad that the Trailblazers won. I mean, I don't know. I don't particularly care because again, I've made my stance clear on Summer League. I did watch the highlights of this game to be prepared to at least mention that stuff.
That's all I had to talk about, and I just wanted to talk about the Damian Lillard's reaction to his team winning.
What I thought was more important was Keegan Murray. What I thought was more important was Keegan Murray won MVP.
Yes.
Now, did he have competition? Did he have competition statistically? No, not really. No, I looked. He did not. So I'm going to read his stats, why I think they're important. He averaged 23.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals, while shooting 50% from the field and 40% from three. Now, that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Victory lap. Once again, we would have taken Keegan Murray. It sounded like we came to that conclusion. And all the Jaden Ivey stuff, not playing their side, whatever, right? Keegan Murray was a good pick. It's unbelievable that is so far working out. Again, Guy has a great summer league. Wow, look at this guy. Look how his rookie year is going to be. Has a bad summer league like Jabari Smith. Man, this guy sucks. Da, da, da. Like it's just not the narrative I want to play, right? So it is still important to know Keegan Murray did change the odds in terms of what Vegas thought, like because essentially his summer league performance propelled him into the second best rookie of the year candidacy in terms of betting. So
who's number one in rookie of the year?
Paolo being,
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Paolo being
that's where I would put it. Yeah.
Yeah, right now, and plus 350 still, and this isn't a gambling podcast, but I'm just saying, if plus 350, you're getting value for Paolo Banchero.
I don't think Keegan will win rookie.
He could. I think
he could.
I think they make.
I don't see him doing it because I just don't see the ball going in his hands enough to get that production.
Yeah, with
rookie of the year usually goes to a good guy on a really terrible team.
Yeah, and if they make the play in and he averages 17, maybe, but like Paolo's going to average probably 18 and they're going to suck and all that, whatever. So yeah, you're probably right there. I just wanted to do two things with Summer League, and I didn't have a ton either, but I wanted to do two things. I wanted to read some of the more recent MVPs of the Summer League and kind of like give you a synopsis. No, and this is for.
I'm excited about this.
Do you think could you name who?
Not a single one.
Not a single one. Okay, that. I shouldn't have done this. I should have bookmarked this for trivia. For some reason, I should have found a way to tie this to trivia.
Wouldn't have fit the weekly topic.
I could have found a way.
Yeah.
I could have found a way. Dang.
Bookmark it and use it for that show that we're not going to talk about right now.
I like that. All right. You guys, and you don't want me to read these and like use it for that instead?
But no, read it. We'll see if anybody actually listens to our podcast.
That's fair. Anybody we have on. The last few, actually, they've only been doing 2006. I'm gonna read them really quickly. Last year was Cam Thomas. Yes, I know. Cam Thomas, Davion Mitchell, Brandon Clark, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson, Glenn Rice, Jonas Valanciunas, Josh Selby, not Shelby, Selby, Damian Lillard, John Wall, Blake Griffin, Jared Bayless, Nate Robinson, Randy Foy. The common theme I took away
those guys are pretty good for the most part. Yeah.
That's the part I took away from that. Everybody except for Josh Selby, who, by the way, had a 4-year NBA career.
Most of those guys are pretty good.
That's an unbelievable track record. And I'm talking like even Randy Foy, who was like a top-tier 6-man / fringe starter for a lot of those Nuggets teams. Like, he might be the worst player on this list, and he really isn't. Jared Bayless is on here. Like, he's not the stout player. But Brandon Clark, we don't know enough about just yet. Davion Mitchell, the Cam Thomas part of it. All those guys have good careers. Like, that was the whole point I wanted to make was he's kind of in good company, because when you think of Summer League, you think of that narrative of, well, like, does it really matter? Well, apparently it does. Like, second year, he's a rookie, right? Now, obviously, a lot of rookies have won it, and I wish this showed me, but like Cam Thomas was a first-year player winning Summer League MVP, and Cam Thomas made the first team all, and that was kind of the victory lap I was going to end with, was Cam Thomas made all rookie or all Summer League first team this year, as well as Quentin Grimes, two guys that I was really high on last year's draft, and obviously Cam Thomas had an unbelievable, year last year in Summer League. I already took that victory lap. So I'm just making a point that all those guys have pretty good careers, some of them we don't know enough about. But yeah, he's in great company. I mean, obviously some of the other guys that won that first team award I was talking about was like Tari Eason was on that team, Quentin Grimes. I am not going to try that name, but the Bucks guy, Sandro.
Mamu Kalishvili.
Sandro, a lot of characters. Keegan Murray and Cam Thomas.
I'm not even looking at it, but I know it's Mamu Kalishvili. Yeah.
For those that are new here, there are two people. There are two kinds of people in the NBA reporting world, and you have just heard both of them. Me,
the one who won't attempt it, and Josh, the one who knows it automatically.
Verbatim. It took me 4 years to get Giannis's name right, and that I'm talking like his 4th year was like I think he was about to win his first MVP that year later. So that's bad, and I'm fully admitting that. So yeah, there are two types of people.
I just remember it because Bally Sports did a whole segment about that guy's having a really long name when the Hornets played the Bucks this season.
Oh, that's right.
They did a whole segment about how long, and that's why I gave you the trivia question about really long names.
That's right.
Because of Sandro Mamu.
I knew that I'd recognized it, and also I saw a really cool TikTok about someone saying that the Bucks don't need to make a move for a player to help them win another title when they literally might have a guy like that on their roster already. And I'm like, whoa, But he was good. He had a great summer league first team all. I keep wanting to say first team all NBA, first team all summer league. So anyway, victory lap aside, whatever. Like it's really cool to see what the talent was. I did watch it. I say watch it as in not live, but after the fact, I did watch it more than I ever have. I will say that, obviously, as we're stepping into more of a covering the NBA world. as we do this progressively better. But I'm excited. Hopefully one day for us, we're there. We're part of the excitement. We're part of the energy. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, Vegas, baby.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's ultimately some of the best guys in the world that are that young playing together. So, all right, take us through the NBA rule change as we transition, because we still want to leave some time for TBT, and really quickly at the end about LeBron and Kyrie. So.
Yeah, so 2 NBA rule changes this week coming out of kind of the league meetings there in Las Vegas. One not like super notable, which was the NBA voted for the play-in tournament that we've seen the past 2 years to be permanent. So,
yep,
rubber stamp. It's now what before was kind of a 2-year trial run. It is now an official way that they're going to conduct the playoffs from here on out. So that will continue on.
Are you excited about that? Was the only question I had about it.
Yeah, why not?
You're good with it. Like regardless of the Hornets being in it the last 2 years, like you truly think it's going to be good for basketball long term.
Probably. I mean,
I think so.
I think too many teams make the playoffs in the NBA, to be honest, if I'm like from a competitive standpoint. Because the play-in, technically it's not the playoffs, the NBA, the way the NBA record
They're
keeps.
their own stats.
Yeah, through their own stats, it's technically not the playoffs.
Technically
what are you going to call it? It's the postseason, but not the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, too many teams make the postseason. 2 out of every 3 teams in the NBA make the postseason now.
Yeah, I've always been that proponent of, like, I've been more negative on the play-in than most, and we've been doing this since we've been doing this podcast since the play-in was a thing, and I truly will probably warm up more to it, but I ultimately have not been a fan. Like, I think it's cool. Like, I think it's fine. I think it drums up excitement. I was in a city this year at a time when it was happening and potentially happening in that city, and ended up not working out with the seating, and, like, there's some drummed up excitement there.
Yeah.
Like, the people were really excited about it, and when it didn't happen in Charlotte, the city I'm talking about, I went out to places and people were talking about it, and it was a big deal. It was like watch parties everywhere for it. So there's excitement there. Like, me personally, I'm not like a huge fan of it. So
yeah, I don't know like if I like it from a competitive standpoint, but selfishly, anything that lets me watch the Hornets be in the postseason. So.
Or get the chance to now. Like, like if they can beat 2 people or 2,
especially for a league that is traditionally as lopsided towards large markets as the NBA.
Yeah, historically for sure.
The NBA and also Major League Baseball are pretty heavily lopsided to the large markets, favoring them. MLS is heading that way too, for anyone who pays attention. NFL and the NHL are kind of the only ones that kind of aren't affected by that all that much.
It is weird. It is a good point.
The NFL, because there are so few games, there's a large margin of error. And the NHL, I have no idea why. There's just this incredible parity in hockey, and I'm not going to pretend to know enough about why. Like, it just doesn't seem to affect hockey.
No.
But big problem, I think, in the NBA and MLB. So anything that kind of helps fix that.
Regardless, the transition take
other rule change. Yes, the transition take fouls. This is kind of a big change. So previously, a transition take foul. For anyone that doesn't know what it is, go look it up. I'm going to try to give an explanation, but it's better if you go watch a video. It's the idea of when a team is out on a fast break and a player makes a non-basketball maneuver or a non-play on the ball to foul a player, essentially to stop the fast break from happening. The way the rule has changed now is that when a player does that, the team that was fouled gets to pick a free throw shooter. They get 1 shot at the free throw line, and they retain possession of the basketball. It is essentially a technical foul without being a technical foul now. The player that commits the foul will not be issued a technical, but it will just be issued a common personal foul. But everything else will work like a technical foul. Except for the last 2 minutes, I believe, of the fourth quarter, they said teams will get 1 free transition take foul where the rule will not apply. And then after that, it will apply.
Seems like a lot to keep up on that last.
And this is just for. I think I would have to look in more to see how it works if a team is in the bonus or not. Because I think arguments could be made of like if you're in the bonus, would you take the 2 free throws, or would you like want the 1 shot and then get the ball back?
I'm in favor of it. I think all of that means I think it was a great description. It was
Yeah.
the Athletics article is really good. What we'll do is we'll link the Athletics article right here below about it.
It's a very pro offense.
It is
rule change,
oh, yeah. And it's
which I think comes in helping that like last season in these meetings, the NBA owners made rule changes that were very pro defense, taking away a lot of the easy foul calls. They're very much both. They're all pro action on the court, trying to minimize the game being played through fouls, basically.
Which I'm in favor of watching a 2-hour and 40-minute game versus a 3-hour and 15-minute game. Like, just be real. Like, by the time you do all the stoppages, that's what it turned into. So, it's intriguing for me, but I think the last 2 minutes thing is going to have to be something that I watch and understand a little more because a team has the choice, like you said, like they have both essentially.
No, I mean that's me speculating on that. The last 2 minutes thing.
That's a scenario.
No. The last 2 minutes thing is that in the last 2 minutes, a team can commit a transition take foul, and it will just be a normal foul. There will not be a free throw in the ball. Like that's what the rule is.
So is that going to matter ultimately in a situation? Probably. It'll probably happen pretty quickly. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I just maybe need to see how that plays out in a final two situation, especially in like a playoff game. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's something that may only happen a few times. But I mean, I think that what's really nice, and people are noticing this in the regular season, is teams have these rule guys now on the bench. They essentially have these video rule guys, and they key them up. They're like, hey, and the coach literally this whole year just turns around and goes,
yeah,
should I call it? Yeah. And in the playoffs, they don't have those. So I think they got rid of them for the playoffs. I think that's part of the rule. But still cool to me that they have that, and I think that may help people understand this rule change. And you have, like, your officials or their former officials they pull in and all that stuff. Whatever. I think it's a good rule change ultimately, like you said. I think anything they can do to make play on the court, and this is just hindsight without seeing it yet, but anything you can do to make play on the court better is ultimately going to be a good rule change. So
they want the game to be decided on the court, not through free throws, not through fouls.
All right, let's go really quickly. Let's do TBT because it's the only non-NBA topic we have right this moment because of all the chaos circling around the NBA, and it's July 18th, like I said earlier. The TBT's first weekend has officially, it's still happening, but the first 2 days have been played for us as we're recording this on Monday, like I said. Some really good games, some really awesome games, honestly. Like, let me just be better adjective here. Some really good games, really awesome games. Ultimately, so far, I've just been super impressed with it, and I think we just need to go through and talk about it for a little bit. I kind of want to start with the OTE story, or the OTE part.
Team overtime,
just to get it out of the way, and also just address the elephant in the room that yes, they lost, but like
that was expected as well.
That was expected. Let's you were like, I kind of hope they do just for the sake of seeing them professionally, and
very close game. It was not a.
It was
74-70,
and it came down to they were also down 15 at one point in the second quarter, and these are shorter quarters too. So this is like a situation where you have to run plays and play better defense to put yourselves in better situations quicker. And 15 points could be a lot in a 9-minute quarter game. Like that could really hurt you, right? And they came back from that. Even going into half, they only ended up being down like 4. The Thompson twins looked good. I don't think they looked bad per se. I learned a lot about them very quickly, and I can't wait to take that film and hopefully get more, because the part that's going to scare me, and this is me going into 23 draft a little quickly, but it's just out loud, I'm getting this thought out here so we can follow up on it later. I'm scared I'm not going to see enough of them. I really am. And I think that's my biggest takeaway is I agree with you. Like, they needed to play more of these games, and single elimination sucks.
Yeah.
For them.
So, quick scouting report I had on I was really only watching that game for the Thompson twins. So I was trying to follow them along as they went along the court. My quick scouting report, they're incredibly athletic, both of them. It's just absolute super athletes. The thing that impressed me the most about them was those two guys played really hard on defense. Really, really hard.
I had that as well.
They really worked. And you don't see that from, I didn't expect that going in. I did not expect to see these guys play hard on defense going into it. And that's definitely what impressed me the most. They were super athletes. They were way more athletic than all of the other guys they were on the court with, which was incredible. And they really worked hard on defense. Incredible defensive plays. Poor decision making, which they're 17. It's basically was expected. Really poor decision making. the thing I'm afraid of most is their shots look pretty awful. Like their
There's a couple,
pull-up shots.
Yeah. There was a couple that were
The
bad.
form was incredibly bad. And I think that's going to really have to be worked on because I don't know if they're big enough to not have to develop an outside shot. But that's one thing that can be shooting form, especially in 17-year-olds, can be fixed.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why it's less of a concern. But they're not natural shooters.
Right.
That's pretty clear.
Natural athletes can build around
Natural
that.
athletes, hard workers.
Which is a good. I would rather have both those things right now than at their stage. At 17 years old, I would rather have those two things. Now, you ask me that of a 21-year-old who is a junior coming out of college, I'm going to say that's completely different.
Yeah.
And I think we had similar takeaways, but the part I want to really just understand and like kind of put a bow on for the fact that it's the NBA draft doesn't happen for another 11 months and roughly 14 days. Just to be completely upfront with that, basically it doesn't happen for 11 months. Is as of right now, without doing any kind of deep dive of this class, for me right now it's going to be Victor, Scoot, these two guys, and everyone else, and that's really where we are. Like these guys are kind of getting, whether we like this or not, they're getting airtime. Like people were talking about them. It's a big deal. The only frustration point I would have is,
well, that's because the college guys haven't gotten airtime yet.
That's fair.
It's going to change once college basketball season.
They're also getting the media. I think the OTE thing is really unique, and I'm still completely out on it. But
I think they're going to disappear after this. It's going to be tough.
Well, and that's what I wanted to kind of just quickly touch on was it, and like I think OTE and like the media around OTE is really good. Obviously, college basketball, there's nothing better and bigger than media and basketball in March, right? But the OTE guys and like getting this shine and people not forgetting about them per se, like throughout this time, and I think college seeing how they stack up against the media then. It's going to be interesting, like you said, but I think it's interesting to note that like these two guys, like the OTE thing, I'm nervous around the fact that like we've talked about this, neither of us are high on it. When I hear all the broadcast, and I know the TBT is not pulling in your like your stout broadcasters of the world. I get it, right? But these are professional broadcasters.
I mean, it's got the ESPN teams, so
it does. But and Greenberg was on this broadcast.
Yeah.
They pulled him in for a good reason. But the guy with him, and I forgot to write his name down. I have a video of it, and I'll tweet it if I think it's.
I will say Greenberg didn't seem super enthused about being there.
He didn't seem super enthused about OTE. That was the point I was going to make. Is he?
Yeah.
I don't remember who was with him, and I don't have it in front of me. But the guy, I took a video of it because I thought it was really interesting. It was like halfway through the second quarter, right before they made that run. And the guy was basically like, yeah, OTE's getting the kind of that break in the ball where somebody swaps it out of bounds and they have a second to talk. And it was the play-by-play guy talking. So in his defense, he's play-by-play. But he was like, yeah, OTE and these Thompson twins are going to have this place and this thing. They're gonna play games and have the development, and he like legitimately stuttered through it and had nothing to talk about with it. He didn't know, and it was one of those things. And this is not the knock on the commentator. Please don't aggravate this. This is a knock on OTE, and what that means for they literally don't have anything to we just don't have anything to know about them, and it's just really frustrating. Like I don't, as an NBA draft person who cares about it, I'm not gonna call myself a scout. That's not what I am. But as somebody who watches these guys intently and who tries to be strong with their film and study, I'm kind of nervous. I'll be honest. I'm really nervous about the fact that they basically had nothing. And luckily, Greenberg, like you said, wasn't excited to be there probably. But he came in and he made a couple of great points about it. And he kind of talked about they had some games apparently scheduled in Europe over the next couple of weeks where they're going to play against teams in Italy and Spain and stuff like that. So Greenberg saved the point is what I was making. But I just want people to know that there's some uncertainty there. And I don't think I think it got brought to light over here in this game.
So going back and taking a quick look at the OTE website, they have a league of 3 teams.
That guy was not aware of it and did not make any reference to it.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
3 teams.
Yeah. That's
they
not
have
enough
3
to play
teams that play each other over and over again. It looks like they played each other
Where can I watch these guys
25
in person.
Like 25 times. There's nothing televised. There's not much in person. Well,
it's
I
probably live
streamed. Go in person.
I was going to say in person we could probably find somewhere wherever it's being played, and it's probably a big market, and it's probably live streamed through something with Overtime. 100%.
Yeah, you can buy tickets.
Like, is there any games that we know of?
No games are scheduled at the moment.
Okay, so then, yeah.
I mean, it'll probably be your typical, like, it'll be the basketball season schedule. Looks like they play them all in OTE Arena, or a lot of them OTE Arena in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And they're playing games against Western Reserve Academy and the Spire Institute.
Yeah, they're playing against like these like IMG Academy type high schools. Yeah, because these guys
are playing high schools.
Yeah, the IMG Academy, like that kind of. I'm using them as the example because they're kind of like the prototypical like that. But yeah, they're playing. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough conversation to be had. I'll say this though, for it to be, I'll end with this, and we can move on to some of. And if you had any other thoughts about any of the other tournament, I thought overall I didn't have much, but the OT thing really quick is they lost by 3 to a bunch of like really experienced guys who've had professional careers.
Yeah,
right.
They were also playing an away game. Basically, they were playing Omaha Blue Crew.
Thank you. In Omaha.
In Omaha, Nebraska. Well, it's Omaha Blue Crew is the Creighton alumni.
In Creighton.
They were playing in Creighton's gym against them. The crowd was packed.
Best crowd other than the Rucker.
In favor of Creighton.
Yeah, best crowd other than the Rucker night game. Literally.
The crowd was absolutely packed in favor of the Creighton Blue Jays.
And they lost by 3. Which is that's a really good outing. I'm really not disappointed by that for that reason alone. So anyway, I think it's good that we attacked that head on because, we posted our thoughts on OT last week. Some stuff like if you haven't watched it.
I do have one thing that I decided when I was thinking through the games I watched this weekend.
We still got
and I don't know if it's a hot take, but you just kind of react to what I say.
This is good. I like these.
I don't know why I feel this way, but I think I really hate the Elam ending. It's just...
I was going to say 7 days, but 2 days told you that?
Yep.
Can you elaborate?
I don't know. So, like, the whole purpose of the Elam ending was to get away from it, like, feeling like an anticlimactic finish, right? For some reason, the Elam ending to me feels more anticlimactic than having the clock. And the clock, there's a lot of suspense as things are driving down. The games aren't typically ending on if someone hits a free throw and it's over at that point.
Yeah, I think
and it's just it feels like just like the shot goes up and the ball goes in. It just feels like the air is taken out of everything because there's no clock. A big shot like that's hit, the other team doesn't like. If the other team's down by like 1, like you're not getting the ball back to go down. Like you got 2.5 seconds to go try to hit the shot. Like I feel like what was a great idea like has actually taken away some of what can be the cool back and forth as the game is coming down to the wire. Because there is that definite end. It's not a back and forth with an indefinite end. It's you scored 1, like, got beat by 1, tough luck, buddy. Didn't get there in time.
It wasn't necessarily a hot take. I'll say this. I hated it when the first year of the All-Star happened. Because, hold on. I like it in one-time situations, like the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that the first year it came down to Anthony Davis hitting a free throw. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. Actually, it's on record. People can go find it.
We did.
One of our first 15 episodes. Mm. I was like, this sucked. Anthony Davis hit a free throw to win the All-Star game. Yeah. Who cares? And I was like, I think I was about this mad too, like Bane right here and everything. Mm-hmm. And in these situations, now you have games where it's like, the YGC game where it was set. They were, by the way, they almost lost, and weren't they the second highest seed or something? I don't know if
they were a 1 seed. They did lose last night to HBC United.
Yeah, which is correct. Team I was really excited and pulling for, by the way.
Props to them. I hope they beat.
They almost lost game 1 against the Hoopville Warriors, though. But
I hope HBC United beats
the Americana.
Yeah, and makes it onto.
Two good causes. You kind of feel like
I suddenly started wanting to stop talking once you told me who they were playing.
Yeah, you're like, oh, cool. So I'm pulling for HBCU against a team that's for all. You're like, I don't know. I hope they both win. No, just it's kind of one of those tough situations. It's all for good causes, so it's kind of like, yeah, sure. No, they almost lost night 1. Of course, my skip to my Lou team. I was really excited about. Had to play HBCU in round 1. Expats lost in round 1. I mean, all these teams that I was super excited about just, like gone. See you later. Single limb will do that to you. There are games live as we're talking about this, by the way. But
I know.
Sideline Cancer barely beat Defeat Diabetes. So basically the battle of cancer and diabetes.
Why did they match them up in the first round? Come on.
Well, Defeat Diabetes, I don't think their team is stellar, and they're a 7 seed. So
okay.
But regardless,
But it's
a lot of
like the
great
two
matches.
that are fighting for great causes to get money from charity. You got to make them knock each other out immediately.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little interesting, some of the matchups. But regardless, we can move on if you don't have anything else. I agree though, that hot take, like it's a little hot. I will say, in the setting of the fact this entire tournament's kind of centered around that. It's kind of like it is kind of a hot take in that regard.
Which the one good thing, I mean, it's like they're all like spending a lot of time, like getting a lot of attention for these things. I've seen a lot of like time given well by ESPN in the broadcast to like really giving awareness about autism and like ways for parents to treat their kids or get help through the broadcast. I've seen stuff like with the HBC United games, and I think some of the other games about working in sports scholarships for students of color that are being sponsored kind of like through TBT. So there's a lot of really good stuff they're doing in the broadcast to really get the awareness out there for these things, which I thought was really cool.
Not that this matters right now, but I will say this: it's yes, all of that stuff is great, and they're doing a very and I'm right now. I'll say this: I haven't watched it historically. This is my first year actually fully watching this tournament. I can remember watching some games last year, but I know with the COVID part of it I remember some of that stuff was kind of sheltered and it wasn't exciting and stuff like that. But the part of it that I like is they're doing a good job with stuff like that. That's a great point. They're also doing a good job of really giving these players some respect for their name, basically. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, this guy was a standout at Penn State, which, by the way, Penn State's never been a standout basketball school. But this guy was there was a guy on one of the teams in the Rucker Park game, one of the first games of the day. He was like, this guy was a standout who's now the MVP of the British Basketball League. And it's like, that's a big deal. Like, that guy's really good in his league, in his regard, who's a top league in Europe. That's not the Euro League, sorry. But it's still the fact that he's a guy that I didn't know very much. I've heard the name, but I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I could, like, if I wanted to, I could go look him up and really, like, cool, right? They've done a great job on both those fronts. Also, just, I think the regions, I think they did a really good job of picking some of the regions. Like we've said last week, we were really big on the Rucker Park thing. And after watching it, after it being the first game of the weekend on ESPN, the whole thing, I was all in. I was so excited, except for when they let those two dudes from like the 60s and 50s talk for like 45 minutes straight, and I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, they were talking about like Rucker Park basketball legends, which was interesting. And it made me do some Googling, because then they had Pee Wee Kirkland on to do an interview. And most people are going to have no idea who Pee Wee Kirkland is, because I didn't.
They should.
Before this.
They should now.
He's apparently, he's a legendary player there, was drafted in the NBA draft. Turned it down because it would have ended up with him making less money than what he was doing in his day job, which was being a drug kingpin.
There's some history with Rucker Park with some of that stuff. He's not the only one. We won't spend all that time right now. But, you got to think some of the legends that, like I mentioned, the Skip to My Lou thing, right, with Rafer Alston.
Yeah.
Dr. J got his nickname on the Rucker Park court. Like that. He says, nah, call me the doctor. I think we can say that stuck, right? Like NBA Hall of Famer and one of the top 15, 20 greatest players of all time.
Yeah, and if you look at the list of guys who cut their teeth at Rucker Park.
I actually took a picture of it.
Yeah. Like, I was reading it, like, it's pretty impressive.
It is. I took a picture. KD obviously dropped the second, which, by the way, I couldn't find who had the most points all time at Rucker Park. This has turned into a Rucker Park segment, but he had 67 or 63 at Rucker Park a couple years ago.
Well, it was the most creative part, because I think it's the only, like, all the 7 other sites are being played in indoor arenas, like a typical tournament would be.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize when I saw the Rucker Park region, like, they were going to play outside at Rucker Park, like, on the street ball court.
You thought it was going to be, like, some local college nearby.
Yeah, I really did.
Okay. Harlem University.
I wasn't really, like, expecting them to actually play on the court with one rim that is 9.5 feet off the ground, and one that is 10 feet off, and
tilted down, by the way,
downward on the 9.5 feet
dunking.
One. Yeah,
like that's awesome.
And the rain delay.
Yeah, I've never seen a tarp in my life on a basketball, like on TV, like on ESPN.
Basketball. The second game at Rucker Park was delayed due to rain. Just not something you see in basketball typically. It was a very interesting experience as a sports fan.
So this is not some of the best players of Rucker Park. This is some of the best players, don't get me wrong, but there are more. But this is some of the best nicknames to come from Rucker Park that are associated with some of these players. So Dr. J, like I already mentioned, Skip to My Lou, Rafer Alston, Corey Williams, Homicide, Goat, Earl Manigault, Terminator, Ron Mathis, Bone Collector, I remember Bone Collector, Larry Williams, The Destroyer, remember him, Joe Hammond, Best kept secret was Kareem Reed. They spent like 30 minutes talking about him. That was really neat. Herman Nolings is another guy that they kept on TV way too long. Helicopter, and then Jumpin' Jackie Jackson. If there's anyone on that list, that's the one people should look up. Is Jumpin' Jackie Jackson. That guy, I'm telling you, I went down and did like a 20-minute deep dive of him. Unbelievable. Like, I can't even give you a comparison to where he would have stood out.
He was an NBA player who turned it down to go play for the Globetrotters instead.
Yes. He was a Globetrotter, but he was also like the Globetrotters all show, obviously, and before it became even bigger of a show, it was actually some legitimate basketball. Yeah. But a lot of that spurred from the Rucker transition. He was the Rucker was not just some bum.
I'll give you other big names. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Nate Archibald.
He also played high school down the road from there. Like, we talked about that with
Ron Artest.
Jim.
Wilt Stilt Chamberlain. Dr. J, that you mentioned. Stephon Marbury. A name that doesn't get talked about enough.
From there, too.
Earl Monroe. Kevin Durant. Sebastian Telfair. Jamal Tinsley.
Sebastian Telfair is good for a second. Sebastian Telfair is a really good one, too. A lot of people don't know that name, and they should because he was in the NBA, and he was one of the best, like, LeBron-level high school talents. Anyway, go ahead. Look him up.
That's it. That's all I got for you.
I definitely wanted to make sure I said that then, because that's a really, like, he's a guy that, not a big NBA what-if, but a big NBA what-if to me who cares way too much about this small stuff. So,
I mean, he spent 9 years in the NBA and then spent a lot of years in the Chinese Basketball Association.
He did, and he also had like a Jimmer Fredette style time there. But
as all the talented NBA players that head to China seem to do. Tyler Hansbrough went and spent, like, after basically not having any the NBA teams want to sign him, he headed out to China and averaged 26 points per game.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a great place. Call it the boneyard for the NBA talent. But no, he was really good. Ultimately, he was like high school. I mean, like high school hype wise, he was one of those guys. So, all right, let's really quickly talking about exhibition places like Rucker. Let's just end with this. This doesn't have to be an actual segment, but let's at least mention it since we're hour-ish right now. But LeBron James. Josh had to, for those of you on YouTube, he just went and pulled up his agenda because he forgot. Just really quick, literally this might take 3 minutes. I'm going to read my notes on it. Does this matter? I'm serious. Answer the question. Does this
matter? No.
No. Next question. Is it remotely entertaining for Twitter to lose its absolute mind at 3 p.m. on a Saturday? Let me be clear. 3 p.m. on a Saturday Eastern, like 1 Pacific or whatever. 12
oh, it's incredibly entertaining.
People lost their
I got so much joy over watching LeBron get lost on a spin move by some dude that has a day job and doesn't play for basketball.
A plumber, you might say.
Kyrie not showing up, which was the most predictable thing ever.
Well,
just not coming to his game.
Hold on. I wish I'd read this question fully because I wasn't done.
Okay.
No, it's good. No, remotely entertaining for Twitter to lose its mind at 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday when there's nothing to do basketball-wise other than the TBT, which is what they should have been watching. The fact LeBron dropped 42 with DeMar DeRozan as his teammate and only won by 2 points, coupled with Kyrie Irving not showing up. So to begin the question, is it remotely entertaining and then blank all of that stuff, right? Of course it is, which is why we're talking about it. That's all I had. That was literally the 2 things I had, and I don't care that Kyrie Irving didn't show up, but I almost think that makes the LeBron thing even less important because it's kind of like, cool, so LeBron dropped 42 on plumbers and only won by 2. Who cares? So I'm not actually going to.
Here's a question for you.
To be clear, I'm not tackling this at all.
One, it was funny for me. I think my quote from it was, I felt really bad for the sports writers, which I guess now
it was Dave Minning,
harkens over to us that had to cover LeBron absolutely dominating this rec league game on a Saturday.
I'm making the plumber joke for a reason.
But then the next one is, if I were to ask you the question, higher or lower, did Talen Horton-Tucker shoot higher or lower than 40% from the field in his Drew League game?
I'm in a group chat with a bunch of people who make fun of me and my team, so I'm going to go with lower because I did see this.
He shot 38%. Watching Talen Horton-Tucker struggle
in the
Drew League. When he's supposed to be... Right? No, I don't think so.
He was on someone else's
when he's supposed to be the crown jewel of all of these potential trade packages. I feel for the guy because he's going to get clowned for that for a while.
Oh, he is.
Like, you're an NBA player. How, like, I understand, like, we make a lot of jokes about the talent level at the Drew League. The Drew League is a semi-pro league. Mm-hmm. It is a lot higher than the rec league, I'm calling it. But it should not be high enough that Talen Horton-Tucker should not be absolutely dominating these guys. I just don't get it.
It's a place where, and I've always changed my opinion on this, but I ultimately lean basically with the fact that the worst player in the NBA is better than the best player on the street somewhere. And maybe that's not true in some cases. Rucker Park is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Right? But for the most part...
Maybe it's not always true, but
it typically leans that way. Example A, Brian Scalabrine, and I don't know why we've gone on this far of a tangent, but Brian Scalabrine in Boston held a best player tournament. Like, he did this whole thing where he had this big group of guys, and some of the best players in that area could come and play, high school, old, whatever, it doesn't matter. And he would play them each, or like he would make it to a certain part of the bracket, and he would start playing them after they played each other, whatever. And he never gave up a point.
Yeah, no, I always found that Scalabrine story hilarious because it was the most funny.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, it is the most funny and most petty thing I'd ever seen because he got so tired of the Boston fans making fun of him and saying he shouldn't really be an NBA player. And he basically just gave an open challenge. If you think you can beat me, come play me. And then just dominated those guys.
And who even cares? And we can we can close up here because
I thought it was great.
I can't believe that we went more than 5 minutes on the Drew League. And second of all, we've now gone to an hour 15 in July. I'm very happy to say we have, to be clear. My download speed tomorrow is not going to like it. But you know what Brian Scalabrine does have? He has one of these.
Yeah.
He has a championship ring. I wish I had like an NBA. I plan on buying one of my somebody. Obviously, a Lakers one would be preferred, but I'd love to buy a championship ring at some point so I could use it for that example. Yeah, you know what he has in all my argument? You know what this guy has more of him than does? This guy, that hold it up to the camera. All right, let's close this out because again, I love that these 6 topics were. I say 6, I guess 7 if you count the Kardashian debacle. Yeah, that will be up on TikTok as soon as the episode is. Just to be
Kardashian, woo!
I'll end with this really quick. At 2 Pointers on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at the 2 Pointers Podcast. Excuse me. Facebook.com/the 2 Pointers Podcast, as well as YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, please below like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. It's still going to be Wednesday no matter what, but still turn them on so you know exactly when it happens. Preferably in that mid-morning time, so you have it on your commute. But we thank you for all the support. I'll just say this really quick. We are creeping up on 3,000 downloads, and I just like that number when I say it out loud, and I just think about the perspective of how in 2 years you guys have supported us this much.
Wait, we are?
Yeah.
Didn't we just hit 1,000?
We're at 3 coming up. Like, this episode will be probably our 3,000th download. So, thanks you guys. Yeah, thank you. It's been in less than 2 years, like, for us to be able to do what we're doing right now. We've got some. I'll just leave with this. We've got some unbelievable stuff planned throughout the rest of this year, going into next year. Please subscribe, download, follow everything you can. You're going to want to be a part of this 2 Pointers Podcast content movement. So, thank you. Josh, close us out.
This has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm delusional.
Yeah, that's true. We will see you soon.